Hi there, YouTube. This is the Magnus bringing you a Total War Warhammer competitive online play faction review for the Warriors of Chaos. I want to start this off by saying I've been playing the Warriors of Chaos a lot lately, and they are my favorite faction as far as lore and flavor, but I do believe they are one of the weaker factions, if not the weakest, in the game for competitive play. That doesn't mean they're not usable, and that doesn't mean they're not fun to play with. So let's go ahead and dive right in here. Now, starting off, the Warriors of Chaos are generally going to be pretty rushy. That's because you don't have ranged units, you only have one artillery choice, and you don't have a whole lot of magic and tricks or those kind of units that give you a unique way of approaching the battle. So generally it's going to be a smash mouth, head-to-head kind of fighting, a lot like you're going to get from the Beastmen or even some greenskin builds, but depending on the way you go. So we want to keep that in mind when we take a look at this faction. So we're going to go ahead and start off with the Lords. The Chaos Lord is probably almost certainly the most viable choice you can have as a Lord. I prefer no abilities. They are all overpriced in my testing. I like the Potion of Toughness, and I like to either bring him on the Barded Chaos Steed, and I do this if I'm going to face a faction that has flying and I don't intend to contest the skies. He's very cost effective this way. Now, if you're going against somebody who doesn't have flying, or you want to contest the skies, the Chaos Dragon is an excellent choice as well, and a lot of fun to play. So the Chaos Lord is your go-to guy. Prince Sigvald the Magnificent is quite good at dueling, but otherwise he pales in comparison. He's virtually unusable. The same goes for the Sorcerer Lords. They're just too weak and don't bring enough to the table for their cost. The only real viable choice outside of the Chaos Lord is Kolek Suneater. Again, I bring him with no abilities, also no items, so he costs you 1,800. Now, using Kolek is very situational. You don't want to use him against people who have a lot of missiles or a lot of anti-large on the field. So when you think of like the Empire, a lot of their builds he won't do well against, but some he will. Vampire counts, very likely to bring Blood Knights. They'll cause some trouble for him, but they don't have missiles and they don't have artillery, and generally all of their spells that used to spike single targets have been nerfed, so he can be used then. Or against the Beastmen, who are going to generally bring a large amount of infantry and monsters to the engagement. But generally speaking, the Chaos Lord is the better choice, the safer choice. But if you want to have some fun once in a while, it's okay to fire up Kolek Suneater. The rest of them are overcosted for what you're getting. If you want to save money, you can take Prince Sigvald. No abilities, but do bring his Auric armor. The regeneration is nice, and at 1340, he's not too bad. The Exalted Hero. This guy is actually most cost effective on foot with the Mark of Khorne. The Mark of Khorne is definitely worth its money when you're on foot. It's even more pronounced if you put him on a Barded Chaos Steed, which is my preferred configuration. And if you're going to contest the skies and you have your Lord in the air, then you can look at the Manticore. Generally, you only want to bring one of these guys. Two if you're going up against the Empire or the Bretonnians and you really want to be able to fight it out for dominating the skies. The Chaos Sorcerer of Fire I bring in almost all of my builds. I like him on the Chaos Steed. Barded gives you more armor, but you lose some speed, and I like being able to move him around the field. Ability wise, unless I'm playing the Vampires, I drop Kindle Flame. I keep Arcane Conduit. Spell wise, Fireball, again, only for the Vampires. Otherwise, I just go with the Cascading Fire Cloak and the Flaming Sword of Ruin, because they are both quite good buffs with area of effect, and I don't bring any items. So he clocks in at 931. Very affordable, very mobile, and great buffing and support for your infantry. The Chaos Sorcerer of Metal and Death are both pretty much a no-go. Not meaning you can never use them, but they're very situational. so I tend to stay away from that. Chaos Marauders and Chaos Marauders with great weapons are both pretty cost effective. The problem is they just don't stick around long enough to really have an impact on the fight. Forsaken are great all-around infantry. They're not going to do well against elites, like take for example great swords or Graveguard with great weapons or Black Orcs. Those guys are going to really get your goat. So you're not going to want to go up against those guys with Forsaken. But I bring them in just about every configuration I have because I like to put them out on the flanks because they move very quickly for infantry with a speed of 48. They're great for hunting down missile units. They're great for working around the sides and flanking your opponent and rear charging him with as far as his infantry lines. So they're quite useful, and the Forsaken are pretty much a must-have in any Chaos army. The other super effective infantry you have is Chaos Warriors with great weapons. Now when I say very competitive, I mean as Chaos. Other people definitely have better stuff. The Chaos Warrior with great weapon does well against cavalry, infantry, especially heavily armored infantry, so he's going to be able to go in there and deal considerable damage to a lot of infantry, cavalry, and even some monsters. So the Chaos Warrior is something I bring very often, and sometimes I'll mix in the Chosen with great weapons if I'm expecting to go up against Black Orcs or great swords, stuff like that, or it just really needs something, a unit or two in the center to really hang in there a long time and give my other guys the opportunity to get their damage in and maneuver around the field. Generally speaking, the normal Chaos Warrior and the normal Chosen are not worth it unless you're facing a missile heavy opponent. Then you might want to bring some Chaos Warriors. Otherwise, I'd say no. Halberds do a little bit better against cavalry than great weapons, but they're worse against infantry. And generally, you're going to face a lot more infantry on the field than you're going to see of cavalry. So I would much rather have the great weapons. They have more versatility and just lose a little bit of effectiveness when they go up against cav. So that's my recommendation as far as infantry. Cavalry and chariots. Chariots, we all know how chariots are. They're not very good except for very rare circumstances. Chaos Knights and Chaos Knights with lances. These are the only cavalry you have to work with, and they are quite good, with a very big caveat. They do not trade well with most other cavalry, especially ones that have anti-large. And a lot of the best cavalry have that. Thinking Blood Knights, thinking the kitty cat calf with the halberds from the Empire, they're going to smash your face in. But if you're going up against the dwarfs or somebody who's not going to bring cavalry, like maybe the beastmen, these guys can put in great work side charging and rear charging. Now, if you have really good micro and you have an army where the Chaos Knights are going to be your focus, then bring the lances because the charge bonus is off the hook. 80 charge bonus. They smash face. Now, the regular Chaos Knight, the advantage of it is you'll notice it has a lot more melee defense, 16 more, and more melee attacks. So it's going to hit more consistently, and it's going to do a lot better job of protecting itself. So if you're not going to cycle charge a lot, you're only going to couple in and you're going to leave them in for a while, go with the regular Chaos Knight. He has so much more survivability. Trust me, you'll thank me afterwards. Missile Cav, not worth it. Not going to talk about it. The Chaos War Hounds are great if you want some maneuverability. At 93 speed, they will hunt down just about anything and kill it. They do not hit hard. They do not last long. These are basically your missile chasers, or you can bring one or two for chasing fleeing units off the field to make sure they don't come back. And you can rack up some crazy kills doing those kind of things with Chaos War Hounds. But you have to have the micro to be able to give them the attention they need, to move them around, to get them into good situations, and keep them out of the bad ones. Trolls, their leadership just makes them a no-go. Chaos Spawn, I see a lot of people using these. Unless you have a really good meat shield for them and a really good circumstance, these guys are not cost effective. You can get a Forsaken for $750 and it will do better against almost anything, especially if it's by itself. A Chaos Spawn by itself head to head will lose many a battle that your Forsaken would win, and the ones the Forsaken will lose, your Chaos Spawn will lose a lot worse, and he will cost you more money. So the Chaos Spawn is generally an avoid. The only other monster that I really use is the Chaos Giant. Again, very situational, but he can provide a lot of punch and a lot of staying power because of his ridiculous amount of health. So there are situations and certain opponents that I do bring one of these guys. 2 is a bit of a stretch, but 1 is definitely usable. Dragon Ogres are good at fighting Kitty Cat Cav or the Blood Knights, but other than that, they're horrible. The value you get fighting infantry is terrible. They don't trade well with monsters. The only thing they're good at is taking out elite Cav, and then after that, even with that, you're paying more than they are, and you're not going to have much left afterwards to speak of. The Hell Cannon is a very good artillery unit. I use this in a couple of my compositions, like against the vampires where I know they're not going to have range, or against the dwarfs where they tend to cluster together and I can do a lot more damage. And with the dwarfs, you always want to throw them off by forcing them to come to you, and you do that by having better range and doing more damage from range. So those are the situations where I like to use the Hell Cannon. It's really not a bad unit. Just make sure you pay attention to terrain. If there's a lot of trees, you're going to be shooting uphill. Any of those kind of circumstances, it's going to lose a lot of its efficiency, and you're just going to want to avoid it. So that sums up the units for Chaos. Again, generally you're going to be kind of rushy. You're definitely going to be infantry heavy because that's where your strong point is. The Chaos Lord is head and shoulders above the rest, with only Kolek Suneater being any sort of competition. Chaos Sorcerer of Fire is almost a must. He's just going to do so much for you with the buffs. The Exalted Hero is great on a horse, good on a mana core as far as its cost effectiveness, and the Cavalry is very situational. Monsters, not much going on there. And a lot of that is not based on the Warriors of Chaos. That's just the metagame the way it is now as far as what performs well. Cost efficiency wise, infantry are better than anything else except for missiles and artillery, and that's only if they get to use all their ammo, which almost never happens. So go infantry heavy, go rush with these guys, and you will get good results. Again, not the most competitive faction, but certainly not unplayable. And in this latest patch, I just want to point out that Chaos Warriors got a 25 reduction to cost, so they went from 800 and 900 to 775 and 875, and your cavalry got cheaper by 100. This used to be 1500, this used to be 1600. Those are the only major changes I've noticed. If you've noticed others or you have feedback, please leave it in the comments. I would love to hear more about how to make my Warriors of Chaos armies better. If you learned from this and you liked it, please like, please subscribe. I'd love to bring you more content like this. Until the next time, this is the Magnus. Go out and bring those end times with the chaos.